Namaste and welcome to Awaken Living with Nibodhi. Today we are discussing conflict and how Vedic philosophy, Vedic psychology, and Ayurveda approach conflict, how they see disagreement, and how any disagreement or conflict within a relationship can actually be a path to a deeper connection with ourself, with others, with the world, with the universe. So take a moment right now and just think about the last conflict you've actually had. That could be with yourself. So whether it's with yourself, if you're conflicted within yourself, or with another person, just think about that conflict. Let go of the story, let go of what the other person said or did. Just tune in and feel what happened inside of you. Remember what happened inside of you. Maybe it was a tightening of the chest, or your body got hot, or your throat started to close up. We developed the urge to defend or the need to be right. All of these things simultaneously. And then another deeper look at that is asking yourself, what if that moment wasn't really the problem? What if it's not a problem at all? What if our conflict is not a problem at all? What if the conflict is the doorway, it's the gateway, it's the teacher trying to help us? Because this is what the Vedic traditions say. They tell us that conflict is not viewed as a failure, or even wrong or bad or anything like that. It's a sign, it's a signal, it's, hey, pay attention. It's a moment where the awareness meets our samskaras, our conditioning, our pattern. And it's also where the consciousness comes together with its distortion, its confusion. And so it's a moment that really requires us to see ourselves more clearly, because a disagreement is basically showing us where our perception, our ego, our identity, and our attachment are essentially not aligned with truth, the higher truth, not the truth that we tell ourselves. Another aspect of that is that the Vedic philosophy tells us that the conflict is not actually ever about the other person. It's entirely about us. It's about our own state of mind. It's about our own conditions, the samskaras, the subconscious programs that we're running, the unconscious programs that we're running, and ultimately our own relationship to reality. So today's discussion is going to be an exploration into conflict, and through the Vedic lens, through the Vedic viewpoint, and how we can use that to grow, how we can use that to transform. So any conflict basically begins with a misidentification. Again, we think that the conflict starts with the other person, but that's not true at all. It's our own misidentification. There's a concept in yoga philosophy and Vedic philosophy called Avidya. It means we forgot who we are. It means I have I amnesia. I forgot who I am is, because our true self is pure bliss consciousness. And so we forgot who I am is. And we, in that forgetfulness, we believe that we are our thoughts, and we're our emotions, and we're our reactions, and we're our opinions. And we believe that our opinions are the right opinion, and that our thoughts are the right thoughts. And who we are is the emotion that's coming up. So if someone's challenging our perspective, we take it personally and think that they're challenging us, our own being, and that's very threatening, right? And so really the Vedic philosophy offers us a different viewpoint, is that it's coming from this avidya, this misperception of who we are. And we've mistaken the mind, the beliefs, and all these emotions as our own self. And that's really where conflict begins. And once we start on the spiritual path, we take that conflict in, and we have to deal with our own thoughts and our own misperceptions. And when we're not on a spiritual path, that all gets projected outwards, because it's too painful to take responsibility for ourselves, that we might be the problem. So try next time that someone challenges your perspective, try to take the awareness that they're not challenging you. It's just a perspective. Stop defending your opinion as your own identity. Let go of the attachment to being right, and then we can stop reacting as a way of protecting this false sense of self that we've created around ourselves. Because when we have the need to defend our opinion, our thought, we have the attachment to being right and that our idea is right. And when we need to protect this ego of ours, all the systems in our body activate. Our immune system, our nervous system, we go into that fight or flight or freeze state. We have to defend it. We have to react. We have to protect because we think we're in danger. But that's not true. We're not defending what's true. We're not defending the absolute truth. We're not defending love. We're not defending Dharma. We're defending our false perception. And all of our perceptions, unless we're enlightened, and I only know one enlightened person, and in them there's no defense. But I'm not enlightened. If you're listening to this, why are you listening to this if you're not enlightened? You're not enlightened, sorry to say. I mean, you are on one level, but for the sake of creation and for the sake of this discussion, pretend you're not enlightened. Okay. So we defend this perception, and these perceptions are based on our past, these samskaras, the conditions, and the state, our current state of our nervous system, our current state of understanding of ourself and our place in the universe. So how does this even happen? Ayurveda, yoga have described this as Prajnaparadha. It's the failure of intellect. It's the failure of our right understanding. It's the failure of our right knowing our own self. We forgot who I am is. And ultimately in Ayurveda, Prajnaparadha is considered as the root cause of all dis-ease and all dysfunction. We don't know who we are. We don't know which actions to take. We don't know which words to say. We don't know how to behave. We don't even know how to think. So conflict in relationship is ultimately an external expression of this internal malfunction. It's this internal forgetfulness. Okay. If a mango seed forgets how to make a mango tree, we're not going to get any mangoes. If a human being forgets how to be divine and forgets how to be a human being, what happens? They become a demon. And then they create war and they hurt each other. And we see the state of the world as it is today. And so we have forgotten our core identity as a human being, as divine. Okay? So whenever we are in a disagreement, whenever we are in an argument with another person, we're not arguing with that person. We're arguing and defending our misperception. So we can really, truly use every conflict to become a reflection, not of the other person, but where we are out of alignment. And believe me, I've had a lot of conflict in my life because I was out of alignment with myself. I didn't know myself. Still learning. Okay. And in Ayurveda, we can see conflict through the lens of the gunas. Okay. The gunas are the mental qualities. If you've listened to this podcast before, you actually understand them quite well. It's sattva, rajas, and tamas. And that sattvic quality is the clarity and the harmony and truth, the universal truth. Whereas rajas is the agitation, the unbridled passion, the desire, the reactivity. And tamas is the inertia, the confused state, the ignorance, the depressed mind state. And when something is depressed, it's not seeing the light of day. And all communication styles basically come from one of these three qualities. Actually, everything in creation has one of these three qualities or some combination of all of these qualities. So if you have a sattvic communication style, you're speaking in a way that's calm and precise and empathetic and with compassion. If you have more of a rajasic communication style, it's pushy, it's edgy, it's arguing, it wants to dominate the conversation. And if you're in more of a tamasic communication mode, that's more of the withdrawal. It avoids the conflict or it distorts it. It can't see it clearly. And most conflict actually lives in rajas and tamas. If you're in the sattvic state, the conflict basically dissolves without any force. It's just a conversation of two hearts meeting, of two consciousnesses meeting. But when it's dominated by rajas, it's filled with emotional charge, and that leads to never-ending argument. Lawyers are really good at, they need to have rajas. So lawyer must have rajas to get their point across. Okay. Tamas basically blocks our understanding and creates disconnection and creates more separation and more illusion and more pain. So we can also then, from the gunas, if we understand the Sankhya philosophy, the Vedic understanding of how the universe comes into action, from the gunas is the doshas, the 3 Ayurvedic dosha types, vata, pitta, kapha. And those doshas, even there, can determine how we argue, how we meet conflict, how we fight. So it's cool because Ayurveda gives this practical map of how different constitutions express themselves in conflict. And if we have awareness of our own dosha and we have awareness of the other person's dosha, we can understand and navigate that in a more coherent way. But definitely our constitution is going to influence our conflict style. For example, if you have a predominant vata dosha, your conflict might feel kind of like speeded up, fast, scattered, anxious, jumping from one idea to another or one point to another without getting to the roots of any one particular point that you want to express. And you talk quickly, and in that, because you're not expressing well, you feel misunderstood. And Vata's conflict patterns tend to be one where there's overthinking about the situation, over analytics of the situation. And that creates a fear reaction in the body where that fight or flight state prevents the vata from being grounded. And if they're not grounded, they can't show up to meet that conflict with consciousness. Whereas a pittas are fire, right? So pitta is sharp and direct and really intense. Pittas want precision. They want resolution. And more than anything, a pitta wants to be right. More than that, pitta needs to be right because they know they're right. So their arguments are basically critical and aggressive. There's no conversation unless the pitta becomes humble. And if a pitta is not being seen as right, it turns to anger very quickly because their perception is so rigid, they can't see another point of view. The conflict becomes deeply personal, and they're really out there defending the kingdom, who they think they are, the egodom. So, in Ayurvedic teachings, the pitta is described as the warrior, and that warrior is going to go kill to defend their viewpoint. Whereas a kapha is basically the opposite of that. If someone's a kapha dosha, the conflict's not even going to look like a conflict because the kapha, when they're imbalanced, they actually stay calm and they're slow and steady and they can actually meet with compassion and empathy. But the dark side of that, the challenging side of that is they may feel underneath the conflict that there's resentment, there's expressions, there's emotions not being expressed. And these patterns, when they don't feel like they're safe to express, basically they avoid the confrontation. And those emotions get held and the issues get suppressed into the tissues. The issues get held in the tissues. And that's where a lot of dis-ease comes from. It's where the depression, the sadness, the grief, the resentment, it all builds up. It's being held inside. And because the kapha is withdrawing everything withdrawing within instead of expressing it. I'm very excited to share with you Real Mushrooms, the sponsor of the Awakened Living podcast. I use their mushrooms every single day because they've genuinely changed my life. I trust them because they have 50 years of expertise and use 100% organic mushrooms, 0 grains, 0 fillers, which are found in most common mushroom products on the market. They use just real, organic, clinically tested mushrooms. Every morning, I use lion's mane to sharpen my thinking. I use cordyceps to give me the clean energy I need for the day. I use chaga to strengthen my immune system. And when stress hits, and it does, I use reishi to bring me back to center. With their products, you actually feel the difference. Through the end of April, Real Mushrooms gives Awakened Living with Nibodhi podcast listeners 25% off their entire first order. Use the code AWAKEN25 at checkout and get 25% off your first purchase. You can find their link in the show notes or visit nibodhi.com/mushrooms to get yours today. Regardless of your guna type, regardless of the dosha type, and any of the doshas can express as any one of the three gunas at any time, depending on what the conflict is and how much that conflict is hitting their triggers. But really, the root cause, the real cause of the conflict is our attachment to our own perception, and the attachment to our perception being the right perception. Because ultimately, all conflict is going to follow a similar pattern. We perceive something, and then we believe that our perception of what we're perceiving is the truth, and then someone's going to challenge our perception, and then we need to defend it. Okay? That's it. It's very, very simple. It's not complicated. We perceive something as being true. We believe that it's true. Someone says, hey, that might not be true. Is there another possibility? And then we say, yes, it's true. We defend it. Okay? So very simple. And again, this is just a reminder because we already talked about it, but our perception then becomes filtered through our conditioning, our samskaras, whether they're from this life or a previous life, our early childhood experiences. They're called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, early childhood trauma. If we have dosha imbalances or one guna that's predominant, all of our perception is filtered through all of that. So what Vedic insight offers us is a shift in perception. And that shift in perception is our perception is not objective reality. It's filtered through all these other experiences, through our emotional state, through our biology, through our upbringing, through the community that we live in. And really, any two people can experience the exact same moment side by side and walk away with completely different truths. I know this so directly. In the last couple of years, I had a major conflict in my life with some of my closest friends in the world who I thought were my closest friends in the world. And it was 4 people involved, and all 4 people walked away with completely different concepts of what happened. And because some of the people in the group weren't willing to sit and discuss other people's perspectives, those aren't relationships anymore. That's what happens when when we're not able to sit in conflict with love and compassion and truth, and not willing to see another person's perspective as the potential of it being their perspective, because it is their perspective. So if we can understand that any person in the exact same situation is going to have a different experience and a different truth, if we can understand this, maybe we can soften. Maybe we can stop trying to be right. Maybe we can stop trying to win the argument. And if we're truly on the spiritual path and we are truly saying that we're filled with love and empathy and compassion and we want the world to get along, maybe we try to start understanding the other person's perspective. The conflict isn't about the truth. All conflict is about our attachment to our version of it. So if we're willing to let go of our version of the truth, maybe we can get somewhere. And again, the mind it's very tricky, it's very subtle, and it's going to try and sabotage us at any point and every point along the way. And so both Ayurveda and the Vedic psychology are telling us that the mind is kind of the central driver because it's governing our perception, it governs our emotions or our emotional reactions, it governs our ability to communicate, it governs our behavior. And when our mind is disturbed, the relationships in our life directly reflect that disturbance. And likewise, when our mind is clear, our relationships reflect that clarity and they actually become effortless. It becomes a flow state. But we need to get control of the mind in order to communicate well. And if we can do that, the Vedic model of communication is that it is a tool for healing. Sound created the universe. In the beginning was the word was Om. And that's the beginning, the middle, and the end. It's all of creation within it. So communication, language can be a tool for healing. The mantras heal the mind. They heal our cells. They vibrate. Language is vibration. We call it spelling. We're casting a spell with our words. Our words are power. They shape reality. So Vedic psychology, Vedic teachings treats the spoken word, communication, as medicine or as poison, depending on how we're using it. And basically communication operates, it's a 3-tier system. It's number 1 is what we're actually saying, the words. Number 2 is the tone of those words. And number 3, body language, because that is profound. And most people today, unless there's mindfulness involved, are focusing only on the words being said. And we can say the right words. We can say all the right words. And if our tone is not aligned with what's coming out of our mouth, it's going to create tension. The nervous system of the other person feels it. If our tone has tension, has anger, has resentment, hostility, whatever, even though the words are the right words, the other person will know. Their nervous systems, there's an attunement that happens when two people are in the same field. Okay. If our body, when we're communicating, if our body is tight, if it's guarded, if it's aggressive, whatever our body is doing, it's sending a frequency, it's sending a signal. Our water cells within each other are communicating with each other. My water cells vibrate, they communicate to the other person who I'm talking to's water cells, and they vibrate. Okay. And the other person responds to the signals more so than the actual words being said. So true communication, real communication, if you want to have a real conversation, that begins long before you start talking. It begins with your internal state. Okay. So these conflicts come from whatever our tone is, the body signals that we're sending, and pretty much like any unspoken emotional charge that's in there. Whereas, and that's a rajasic and tamasic state, right? If we identify it with the gunas. If we're identifying communicating from a sattvic state, it's actually the easiest and simple, the simplest. It's we slow down, we stop, we slow down. We take some breaths and center ourselves within ourselves. And then we listen to the other person fully. We don't interrupt, we don't prepare what we're going to say until they're done speaking. And then we speak without judgment, without blame, from our experience, what we're feeling. And we stay, the thing is, we have to stay connected to the breath. We have to stay connected to our breath and to our body while we do this. If we don't connect to the breath and to our body, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel stable. When you connect to your breathing, when you connect it to your body, that is what creates safety. And it's in that safety that changes the whole game. It changes everything. It changes the conversation. It changes how the flow of that communication will go. So the Sattvic way of communicating is listening without interruption. That is first. And then speaking without restraint, but in a way that's compassionate. Remember the acronym THINK. Is it thoughtful? Is it helpful? Is it insightful? Is it necessary? Is it kind? We don't want our words to cause pain, even if they're true. So we need to speak without restraint. And then get rid of all the blame, judgment, he said, she said, you did, you didn't do. The safety, when you speak that way, our safety dissolves. Our safety dissolves, and then there's no harmony. There's no resolution. But when we speak with compassion, when we listen without interruption, and when we get rid of judgment, blame, and the need to be right, the safety will dissolve the conflict way faster than any kind of logic does. And the Vedic view of this way of communication is what they call Dharma. And we place the Dharma over our ego, over our need to be right, right? So Vedic philosophy, Dharma is the right action. And we do the right action first, above our personal preference, above our likes and dislikes, because we want peace. And so in conflict, we should let go of the concept or the question of how do I win? The goal is not to win the conflict. The goal is to create harmony. So if we give up the idea of winning the argument, now if you're a debater and a lawyer, that's very important. But if you're having a human relationship, it's destructive. So we need to find out, we need to question ourselves, what is the most dharmic action in this situation? Okay. What is the most dharmic way that I communicate and show up for this conflict? And that will change everything in the conversation. We can stop reacting and take responsibility, the ability to respond. Response and reaction are two dramatically different things. When we're able to respond versus reaction, because reaction is based on our past, it's based on those conditions, the samskaras. When we can act from clarity and not these emotional reactions, the cycle ends. We stop the escalation of feeding these harmful loop cycles. When we shift into this kind of perspective, we change. We no longer have any need to prove that our way is the right way, because we actually accept that it may not be the right way, or it may only be the right way for us. Okay? And in that, we try to start serving the relationship, because if we're actually having a conflict with someone, there's a good chance that we love that person. We might even like that person, and we want the relationship to continue. That's why we're even talking to them. So we start doing actions, dharmic actions, that are in service of that relationship, whether that's speaking clearly. Sometimes that's taking a step back and taking a walk for 30 minutes until we can get clear, go connect with nature, connect with the breath. A lot of the times it's letting go of the need to be right. And that's not out of a weakness. It's actually because you are valuing truth, and you're valuing love, and you're valuing the relationship over your own ego. And I've made that mistake so many times, I can't even begin to tell you. And I've lost relationships because my ego was so big that I couldn't see the other person's perspective. And it's deeply painful. And there's nothing I can do to change that. I've had to learn that lesson the very hard way. Okay. And that's actually where karma comes into play, right? Like, relationships are just these karmic fields, and they're bizarre. We can't even begin to fathom karma. And it's also not helpful to say, hey, that was your karma. That's not compassionate. That's bypass. But our relationships are these karmic fields. And so if we are having conflict with someone, it's not random. Like, we probably did not come to a conclusion about something in the past, whether it was with that person or someone else, but it's about us. It's about our own reflection, because every conflict we have is revealing something about us, our unresolved patterns, our emotional conditioning, our trauma that wants to be seen and healed, the attachments and aversions that we brought with us through lifetimes. It completely reframes conflict when we can do it this way. So conflict is basically going to offer us something that's ready to be seen. And so stop taking the victim mode here and stop saying, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? Instead, we can say, what is this trying to show me? What is this trying to teach me? Let the conflict be the guru. It wants to remove darkness and bring light. It requires immense amount of presence, but it shifts the conflict from something that we keep resisting into the greatest teacher in our life. It's the mirror, it's the teacher, it's the guru. It's actually our point of conscious evolution into awakened living. So Ayurveda, yoga, Vedic psychology, Vedic counseling, Vedic philosophy, they all have provided us a very practical approach to conflict resolution. It's really simple. And basically, number one is we need to regulate ourselves before we respond. And what does that look like in real life? If your system's activated, stop, because you're never going to heal from an activated system. Don't speak from that state. Take time away. Okay. So if you're in a rajasic state, if you're in a tamasic state, if that is being active, if that fight or flight state or freeze or fawn state is activated, stop, and breathe. Step away from the situation and go breathe. Sit down on the earth, go hug a tree, ground out, use some essential oils, use some singing bowls, tuning forks, use mantra, use sounding, drumming, screaming. Do whatever you need to do to let the nervous system settle. Dance, play some music. But there's never going to be clarity from a reactive state. It's never happened. That's why we still have war on the planet. That's why we still have a war within ourselves. Okay. So the first state is regulate before you respond. The second state, the second process is begin to observe your mind. Okay. Become the witness. Be curious. Accept that we don't know. Notice the story in our mind. Notice the story that we're telling ourselves. Notice the story that we're defending. Just notice it. Be the witness to it. Because what that does is it allows us to take some distance from the reaction. And it allows us to even take distance from the story. So we want to first regulate, and then observe, and then we want to try to shift our consciousness into the Sattvic state because that's what we're seeking. We want to have more clarity before we engage. And that happens when we speak slower. We reduce or remove, if possible, the emotional charge and shift our awareness to focusing on truth, on harmony, on love versus being right. Then from that place, we can speak from our own experience, our own version of what happened without accusation. It's not blaming the other person. Okay. And we may say, you do this, you did this, you said this, you always do this. Instead of you, because the person automatically becomes defensive, we can say something like, this was my experience. This is what I heard. This is what I felt. And that reduces the defensiveness in the other person. We take responsibility. This NVC, nonviolent communication, is excellent. When I see, when I hear, it's 4 steps. When I see, when I hear, I feel, I experience this, I need this, my request is this. There's absolutely no you in that. It's completely about taking responsibility. And then if we want to have understanding, we need to listen to the other person. And I'm guilty of this. I prepared my response long before the other person was done speaking, and it's destructive. Listen without having a prepared response. Listen without needing to respond at all. Just listen because you care about that person. You want to understand that person. You want to understand that person's perspective. Most people only listen so that they can have their chance to reply. They're not actually listening. But in the Vedic conscious model of that, we're listening so we can have understanding. St. Francis said, let me not so much seek to be understood as to understand. Let me not seek to be loved as to love. We want to understand the other person. We want to love the other person. In order to do that, we need to release, let go, surrender the need to be right. Because in that, there is a constant position that's being held. You're holding on to your position as being right. There's no possibility of resolution. Resolution only happens when one side releases its attachment. Okay. If we can do that, we can begin to repair our nervous system. And that's what we're ending the conflict within ourselves. We're not just ending the conflict with the other person, we're repairing our nervous system. And when we repair our nervous system, like those water molecules, the other person is also healing. Emotional health is physiological and psychological and spiritual. Because when our nervous system is fine, when our nervous system is repaired, not just the conversation, but the whole nervous system, we have good digestion. The Agni is balanced. The routines, the dinacharya is stable. We can use support from calming adaptogenic herbs. We can do grounding practices like yin yoga or breath work or tai chi, qigong, walking, because we need the nervous system regulated. Dysregulated nervous systems create conflict. So the goal is to see our conflicts, whether it's internal with ourselves or it's with another person or persons. We want to see those conflicts as a path to consciousness. Okay. The Vedic perspective, the yogic perspective, is not to avoid or eliminate the conflict. That's impossible. There's form, there's going to be conflict. It's to meet any conflict that arises with awareness, with consciousness, with love. And from that place, we can transform it. When awareness when we have awareness in the moment, all the conflict does is provide more clarity about the other person's perspective, more clarity about us, and more clarity about the connection that we're having with that person. And if that's a connection that we actually need to continue or not. So that conflict, it's a tool of self-awareness. It's a way to connect to our deepest self, and it's a way of refining our own perception of ourself in the universe. So approach it correctly, and any conflict is going to strengthen you and strengthen your relationships. But if it's not that, if it's unconscious, if it's just reaction from the samskaras, it erodes relationships. So conflict, it's not the breakdown of a relationship. It's not the breakdown of your idea of being right, wrong, good, or bad. All it's doing is exposing where our perception, our ego might be out of balance. And so what we're seeking to do here is to replace these false perceptions with the truth and allow awareness the opportunity to restore harmony. Okay? It's about meeting ourselves with awareness every single moment, every breath. It's from that place of awareness that we can live an awakened life. We can live a life filled with joy and celebration and love and harmony. And we become the love that we want to see in the world. Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Be the love that you want to see in the world. Every thought, every word, every action becomes love. And in that love, how can there be conflict? So thank you for joining me today. And if this resonated with you, if you have not already, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, share this podcast with someone you think might benefit from it. And we continue growing and evolving and awakening one conversation at a time. So please fill your hearts, your thoughts, your actions, your words with love, and go out and express it in everything you do. Before you go, if you've been curious about Ayurveda and want to actually understand your body and start applying it into your daily life, I built the complete Ayurveda course for exactly that. It contains more than 30 years of education and practice distilled into 50 lessons, with over 10 hours of content, guided meditations, personalized assessments, and so much more. It's designed so you'll feel real shifts as you go through it. You'll experience more energy, better digestion, increased mental clarity, and a deeper sense of balance. Lesson by lesson, it's all there. So go to Nibodhi.com/courses to learn more.